Welcome back, YouTube. I'm the Planet Rocks, and thank you for joining me with another playthrough of Our Life. So, we're just going to go ahead and get started. I want to remind you to go ahead and subscribe to my channel, hit the bell for notifications, and please do like this video. You can also comment. Please do leave me a comment. You can also follow me on Twitter, also on Twitch, and you can like and follow my page on Facebook. So, without further ado, let's get started. It was the first day of summer vacation. The sun was as hot as ever, but you were inside and away from its harsh rays. To be more specific, you were... we got a choice. Snuggled up in bed, celebrating your time off by sleeping in, wide awake, about to head off to enjoy your time off. Honestly, this one sounds more like me. It was hot, but you still had the blanket up over your head to block out the sun. You didn't want it intruding on your lazy morning. Unfortunately, you hadn't prepared for an intrusion. From beneath the blanket, you heard the door creak open. You're still sleeping. Wow. Get up. Okay. You pretended you got up. You started to snore loudly. That's so me. You didn't get out of bed and instead made some obnoxiously loud and totally phony sleeping sounds. It was pretty annoying, but she had bothered you first. Not funny. Get up now. I will come over there. So much for a lazy morning. Your special boy is at the door, like he always is now. He brought some happy summer gift from Mr. Holden. Mom wants you to take it from him. Say thanks or whatever. You did not like the way she called him your special boy, but you knew by now that saying so wouldn't stop her.
Come on.
So come down already. Be right there? Okay, fine. Really? That's great. I'm coming. I'll be there when I'm there. Yeah, that sounds like me. Elizabeth rolled her eyes and left, having done what was instructed of her. You rolled out of bed, stretched your arms up high, and yawning, time to get ready. You sat yourself in front of the mirror in the far corner of your room. You're very tall. I'm about average height. Cove was really tall. Derek was kind of short, and you were pretty much the exact height that someone would expect for a 13-year-old. You liked your height. It suited you well in your mind. Then you put the finishing touches on your outfit while ruminating on the situation, careless as they had been. Elizabeth's words piqued your curiosity. You planned on going over to see what Cove was up to today, so this worked in your favor. It was when you spotted your reflection that you realized you were smiling wide. You were looking forward to seeing him. You left your room, taking an easy time down the stairs. Step 2, second chance. You spotted Mom first, reclining on the couch. She held a magazine in her hands, which she was perusing through. Morning, Mom. She looked up at your greeting, a smile instantly appearing on her face.
Thanks.
Good morning, Jamie. Thank you for coming down. Ma's at the door with Cove. He can't stay over today, unfortunately. Why don't you go and thank him before he leaves? You nodded and made your way to the front of the house, just as she said. Ma was there making conversation. She must have heard you because she looked over her shoulder.
Oh?
Look who finally made it, morning sleepyhead. Ma reached forward and you knew she was about to pat you on the head. She was taller than average, so you were little in her eyes despite being a typical size for your own age. You pushed her hand back and laughed. Ma could be so ridiculous, you thought, but that was okay. You're the last one down today, you know that? Sorry about the wait. Yeah, that sounds like me. Oh, there's no need for that. What matters is that you're here now. With a small laugh, Ma stepped aside. Cove was just as you remembered, exactly how you came to know him to be. He leaned uncomfortably to the side in your doorway, as the longer strands of his hair idly drifted with the breeze. His features were pinched in embarrassment, and he shifted from one foot to another. He was holding what must be the much-talked-about gift. At first glance you figured it must be a bouquet of flowers, then you gave it a real look. No, instead it was carefully cut fruit. Oh, that would so get me. That's so much better than flowers. It made a lot of sense that it was actually from Cove's dad. You had to suppress a laugh at this showing. You couldn't imagine many folks buying that sort of thing for their own personal enjoyment. Are you kidding? I would. That kind of arrangement was built for the presentation, likely to impress whoever was inevitably going to receive it. It seemed no matter how long he lived here, Mr. Holden would keep going out of his way to be neighborly, and Cove would always be roped into participating. At the sight of you, Cove smiled, but there was some nervousness to it. Hey. You smiled back. You couldn't help thinking to when you first met Cove, and how you became such good friends. Lately, though, you were starting to have different feelings for him. Hey, it's nice to see you.
Yeah.
You too. His grip on the base of the gift tightened, and your heartbeat sped up. Even if neither of you had spoken about it, both of you were aware something new was growing in your relationship. It was already shaping up to be another long summer. The best part was that the two of you had plenty of time to spend together and explore what was developing. His awkwardness over the task started to creep back in, so Cove nudged the gift closer to you. He was ready to be relieved of it. Your hands brushed over his just slightly when you took hold of the base. He flinched enough for you to know with certainty that he noticed it happened. You couldn't help but smile to yourself. And with that, the gift was accepted. I hope you and your family like this. It's a pretty good gift. I think so, anyway. He smiled earnestly. Dad spent a lot of time picking out the best size and design. There were so many options to choose from. You're too cute sometimes. No, gosh, I would love to, but I would. That just wouldn't be me. This would. Could you tell your dad we love the gift? Yeah. Mr. Holden's behavior really was different from any neighbor you'd ever had, though after 5 years you were used to his antics, and you'd since made up your mind on what your opinion was. You didn't like him. No, I think he was nice, yeah. You knew he wasn't completely perfect, but he always seemed to try so hard for the sake of others. Your thoughts were quickly interrupted by a shout. There you are! You shared a confused look with Cove. As one, both of you stepped through the open door onto the neighborhood street. It didn't take long to locate the source of the noise. You spotted Derek just a few yards down the road. He ran up to you. You were happy at the sight of him. Derek was certainly a welcome guest in your neighborhood. It was a pleasant surprise whenever he showed up. After stopping a couple of steps away, Derek hunched over to catch his breath. Then he looked up with a wide grin.
Hey.
Hey, my guys. I was just at your house, Cove, but no one was there. Should have figured you'd be at Jamie's place. Do you ever spend time in your own home, or are you always just there? Derek laughed at his own joke. He either didn't notice that it embarrassed Cove, or the embarrassment was what he was actually laughing at. Derek turned to you. He was going to say more when his eyes widened as he gasped. What's that? You followed his gaze, unsure, then you realized what he meant. You were still holding Mr. Holden's gift. This? It's kind of like a bouquet of flowers, but made out of fruit.
Nice.
Can I have some? No. sure, we can share. Derek grew more excited by your words, bouncing on the balls of his feet. Awesome. Then he nodded his head as if to clear it. Anyway, that's right, I came here because I needed to say something big. Okay. He paused, possibly for effect. There's some other kid here in Sunset Bird. Cove was as surprised as you were by the news. Such a reaction made sense. No one around your age had moved here since Cove did 5 years ago. Were they with their family? Maybe they were cutting through. Nah, the new kid was all by himself, just walking. Did you talk to him?
Nope.
No, I came to report the sighting right away. The kid had green hair, glasses, was pretty small, and seemed really upset about something. I hope he didn't leave. You blinked. Slowly, you looked over to your longtime neighbor. That sounds a lot like you, Cove, when you first got here anyway. Kinda does, doesn't it? That's weird. He sounded almost fond, a small smile playing on his lips. Derek snickered good-naturedly. I can see that really well, now that you say so. But what do you say? Let's go find Cove's look-alike. We should all meet him.
Sure.
I'll do it. Sure. I want to see who this person is. Derek grinned. Then he pointed down the street, the way he came. Last I saw him, the mystery visitor was going this direction. Nothing else needed to be said. The three of you were off, with Derek leading the way. Derek brought you to the beach, and as a trio you made your way down the shore to the old playground. You walked the familiar path in a comfortable silence. When you were almost there, you spotted the kid in question. His bright colors almost shone like a beacon beneath the rays of the sun. He scuffled around, kicking up the sand as he paced. It was true, he certainly seemed upset, but you didn't think he was sad like you had originally pictured. No. With his erratic movements and scrunched-up expression, he came off angry. You started to have doubts about this expedition. Maybe it'd be better if you left him alone and let him sort himself out. Derek didn't feel the same. He waved wildly, calling out to the boy. Hey, guy, over here. Oh, okay. The kid whipped around, an impressive scowl carving deeper onto his face. His eyes were tired, but a strong, hostile energy still radiated from him.
What?
What is it? What do you want? The sharp tone made Derek flinch. He shifted on his feet. What's your name? Jeremy. Was that it?
No.
I'm Derek. That's Jamie and Cove. We were just walking around and saw you. We wanted to say hi. There aren't a lot of kids our age in the neighborhood. Yeah, so, it's cool to see someone else here. Strangely, Jeremy grew furious by your response. If steam could erupt from a person's ears, it would have happened then. They did bring me somewhere stupid. Of course. I knew it. What?
My parents.
They're the ones who brought me. I didn't walk to this town. Can you not figure that out on your own?
Right.
Right. My dad brings me to Sunset Bird too, when he has to come for work and all that stuff. It's not bad. That earned him a glare from Jeremy. Derek winced beneath it, glancing away. It was a struggle to remain friendly with this Jeremy guy. I mean, I wouldn't want to come here for a real vacation, probably, either. That's an understatement. This doesn't count as a vacation. It's a waste of time. A chore. My parents' family is nearby, and we just had to come see them. Ugh. If they're your parents' family, doesn't that make them your family too?
I guess.
That's a pretty good reason to come by. Did you want to go somewhere else? No. Jeremy crossed his arms with a huff. He turned away. They should have gone by themselves since they cared so much and left me home, but I'm not allowed to be by myself. Pfft. It makes no sense. They're the ones who don't know how to do anything, and I'm the kid? Okay, shouldn't talk about your parents like that. Nah, I don't think I'd say that. Sorry, it must suck being forced to do something you don't want. We just said hello. You don't have to keep complaining at us. Calm down. You don't have to yell so much. Who peed in your cereal this morning? Honestly, I don't know. Back in the day, I might have said something like that when I was 13, or I would have just kept quiet. I think I would have just kept quiet. You had no idea what to say to this, so you stayed silent. Jeremy didn't even notice, too focused on ranting. How do they always make summer vacation worse every year? You turned to Cove, lowering your voice. The two of you aren't that similar after all. Jeremy must have had good hearing, though, because he caught the private exchange and scoffed.
Stupid.
Ugh, of course we're not similar. My eyebrows aren't stupid. Whoa. Cove's cheeks flushed crimson at the insult. You couldn't be sure if it was out of embarrassment or anger, maybe both. Come on. How can you say that when you've got a bowl cut? Don't listen to him. They're really unique and special. Well, they are. Apologize to Cove right now. I do love that line. But I think this would settle better with Cove. Cove smiled weakly. Okay, well, maybe not. Special because of how ridiculous they look, maybe. God, you're an asshole. You lunged. You patted Cove. Cove gave you a watery look in exchange for the silent support. Trying to talk to the rude boy clearly wasn't going to go anywhere. Wow, what is wrong with you? Instead of taking offense, Jeremy only parroted Derek's words in a nasally voice.
Wow, what is wrong with you?
Oh my god, this is dumb. Jeremy stuck out his tongue, okay, and skulked away, throwing more sand everywhere as he went. You watched him go, hunched over, until he became a speck in your vision. Silence reigned in his wake. The three of you tried to process what just happened. I can't believe it. What a mean kid. Derek wasn't kidding. And by the sound of those earlier complaints, the new boy Jeremy was going to be in the area for at least a little while this summer. Derek sighed in dismay, plopping onto the ground. You followed, and Cove did too shortly after. There wasn't much else to do.
This sucks.
I was hoping we could meet someone fun, hang out, maybe. He shook his head. After a moment, he slowly turned to you with a hopeful expression. But you know what would really improve the day? What? He didn't respond. Instead, he used a hand to point right at the fruit arrangement that you were still holding. You'd completely forgotten about it during the mini-drama that unfolded. You'd gotten used to the wait. Glancing over to Cove, you noticed he was eyeing the fruit. He must want some too. Why not? Let's eat. Derek perked up immediately at your words. He reached out for a skewer, hesitating slightly once he was inches away.
Are you sure?
You nodded. With an eager grin, he plucked out a prime row of fruits. Cove grabbed one for himself. After him. Only you were without a skewer of your own. Pineapple, grape, strawberry, melon. I would go with strawberry. The strawberry was a bright red and beckoning you. It was the obvious first choice. Derek ate a pineapple skewer, enthusiastically finishing it within moments. That's amazing. It's not different than any other normal fruit. It's kinda worse. These have been out in the open with their skins off for a while. Sheesh. Hey, you two remember the Land Before Time? That fruit thing makes me think of it. The dinosaurs all liked the leaves that were shaped like stars. Tree stars. Yeah, chomping leaves looked so delicious when they did it. And there was that scene with the pretty trees and all the dinosaurs came in and picked everything off them till there was nothing. That's us right now. Awesome. I love that movie. I've never seen it. I didn't like that one. That movie's for kids. I'm just gonna go with I love that movie. Me too. The three of you continued like this for the next few minutes. Eventually, the display was barren. It looked weird when devoid of fruit. It did help make you feel better. Yeah. Derek was right. It was so good you were already brightening up from the earlier drama. Hey, Jamie? Yeah? The two of you met eyes casually. Thanks for what you said back then. It's nice not everybody thinks like that guy. Oh, it's okay. He was just being a jerk. Derek chimed in strongly. Don't listen to it, Cove. He's the problem. People shouldn't say those kinds of things. Yeah. Derek then leaned back on his arms. He contemplated the sky with a content sigh. So, are you both ready for summer break? Cool on you. Wish I could say the same. It feels like there's a lot to plan for. And what about you, Cove? Are you ready? I think that depends. Before you could say anything else, the light atmosphere was shattered.
Hey!
Jamie! Uh-oh. You glanced over your shoulder to see your sister. She strode closer and closer, appearing none too pleased. I've been looking all over for you. Ma said you and Cove ran off with the thing Mr. Holden bought for us. She leered over you with arms folded. So, where is it? Well, it's gone. What do you mean, gone? You moved over to the side to face her completely. She zeroed in on the bouquet in your hands, which was now populated exclusively with skewers dripping in juice and tiny flecks of leftover fruit pieces. Her mouth dropped open and the tone of her voice rose.
What?
Seriously, Jamie? What were you thinking? It was supposed to be for all of us at home. She glanced at Cove, who sat beside you, and continued mockingly. Even if you are the most important person in the household to the delivery boy, this was up to his dad. It seemed everybody was in a mood to tease you and Cove today. Within moments, Cove's cheeks flushed red. He picked at the hem of his shirt, suddenly finding it very interesting. He always became nervous when Elizabeth would strike at your relationship. Get over it. We were hungry? Elizabeth narrowed her eyes, not at all okay with that kind of response. Oh no. I think I hear the mean kid coming back. We better get out of here. Elizabeth blinked, confused, and looked around.
What?
What kid? I don't see anyone. Derek didn't bother explaining. He just launched to his feet and ran off. Cove hopped up too, gladly taking the opportunity to exit the situation. He followed after Derek, but he sent a look to you from over his shoulder. You turned to watch Elizabeth. She stared back, brow raised. You ran. Without a word, you got to your feet and bolted down the beach. Unimpressed, Elizabeth rolled her eyes.
So immature.
She shook her head as she walked towards the house, not bothering whatsoever to follow. Meanwhile, the three of you made it back to the shoreline. Derek pumped his fist, grinning in triumph. We escaped, and shall live to see another day. Exactly, but we should keep moving. In case Elizabeth decides to come back after all, or that mean kid is really still around. You chuckled together, walking further down the beach side by side. You definitely wanted to stay outside a little while longer. Later that night, you found yourself seated near the kitchen counter. You had gotten a bit of a scolding from your moms for not saving any of Mr. Holden's gift for Elizabeth, but you didn't get any real punishment for it. Instead, while you were out with the boys, Elizabeth returned home to share the news. The three of them went to get dessert on their own. It was declared even by your parents when everyone got back and the event was settled. That was a while ago now. Your fingers drummed on the surface as you waited, your gaze trained on the phone. You were waiting on a call tonight, specifically from your cousin Leandra. You didn't want to miss it accidentally. Your uncle, aunt, and Lee used to live many hours away. Your families only saw each other a few times a year for big occasions. A while back, though, they'd moved and were closer to you than ever before. You now hung out regularly. With school being out, you're positive she's gonna want to come over a lot. The two of you were the same age and got along well. She used to be really fond of Elizabeth, too, but now that your sister had become allergic to interacting with her own family, it tended to just be you and Lee who spent time together. Yeah, but you had a lot of girlfriends. Even though you weren't a girl, you befriended them pretty well. You also had a lot of non-girlfriends. Yeah, just pile on all the friends. What kind of gender someone was didn't seem to make any difference in who you got along with. Then the shrill ringtone announced an incoming call. You jumped before grabbing the receiver and pressing it to your ear.
Hi!
Sorry about the wait, Jamie. It took forever to get the phone away from my mom. That's okay. There was static on the end, as if Lee was shifting wherever she was. So, can you believe school's actually over? I thought it'd never be done. Now we don't have to do any of that boring stuff and we get to hang out whenever we want. Speaking of hanging out, Lee, can you wait a second? Let me just head to my room.
Oh yeah.
You got up from your seat at the counter. Luckily the phone was wireless, so you didn't have to worry about any cords tying you down. Your mom's had a rule about not moving the phone unless a call was in progress, which was why you had sat by its cradle, waiting for Lee to call. Yeah, you weren't the only person here. If anyone could take the phone anywhere at any time, it'd be an even bigger hassle. You could easily imagine the receiver having a new forever home in Elizabeth's locked room. But now that Lee had called, it was okay for you to go upstairs to your bedroom and talk to her. You made your way up the stairs, smiling. After you had arrived, you shut the bedroom door firmly behind you. You took a seat on your bed. All right, I'm here.
Cool.
Hey, did you know the girl down the street from me has her own phone now? A cell phone. She doesn't have to wait for someone else to stop using it or anything. Wow, really? The thought of someone having a phone that was all their own seemed unbelievable to you. Right? I wish I had one too, but my parents said I couldn't get my own phone until I'm more grown up. I wish they'd changed their mind. We could call each other every single day, and no one would be able to stop us. How great would that be? Really great. We could even stay up late talking about whatever we want. Lee sighed thoughtfully into the receiver. At least they said I could have it someday. I can't wait. She sighed dramatically. I bet I'm not gonna get one until I'm all the way in college. Squeezing the phone between your shoulder and ear, you puffed up your pillows and made yourself more comfy. It was strange to think of a time when normal school would be over and you'd have to choose whether or not to go to a college. School was such a big part of your life right now. Yeah, studying didn't come easily. You knew it was important, and you wanted to do well. Frustratingly, even your best didn't seem to quite ever be good enough. You didn't know how it could be harder. You felt a lot of pressure. You hoped to do just as well this year. Yeah, your future depended on it. Yeah. You tried to sound engaged, but your mind had decided to go back to school despite the season. Lee knew you too well to be fooled. You sound so spacey. What's up? Just thinking about school. Lee groaned. Are you thinking about how we don't have to think about it because it's summer? That's what I'm doing. I'm looking forward to going back. Let's make a petition. Yeah, no matter how much you wanted to enjoy your free time, the creeping dread of knowing that it would come to an end was always there beside you. I get what you mean. Though, I guess school isn't all the way bad. You can do some good things there. You can just do more when school's out. Huh. I just wish everyone did okay with how they taught the things, not just some people.
Me too.
No, that wasn't true. Yeah, and that, yeah. If I didn't go to school, I'd never meet anybody new. No one really comes here. Uh-huh. That was all. And that's pretty much everything that's good about school. Okay, point taken.
All right.
Now, I decree the topic of school is officially closed. We have to talk about this summer first before we start plotting the rest of our lives. I've got some plans already. Oh, tell me. I'm gonna visit my cousins. You chuckled, of course. What's something you want to do? The first thing that comes to your head. I want to spend time with people. People, I hope that means me, too. You leaned back in your bed, settling in, as you continued chatting with your friend. Even though it hadn't been that long since you saw her, and you'd be seeing her soon, you found plenty to talk about. For one, the events of the day. You sat up straighter. I was with Cove and Derek today, and we met a new kid. Like at your neighborhood? His parents are visiting family, so it sounds like he'll be around for a little while. I don't know how long. What was he like? Creepy, mean, weird. Mean. He kept snapping when all we were trying to do was talk to him. He just kept being rude to everyone. But especially Cove. It was awful. I don't think I want to meet him. You want a boy to stay away before even meeting him? That's an unexpected twist. Your cousin was pretty popular with the boys who knew her. She seemed happy enough to have them around until they started to annoy her. Hey, who are you to talk? You give practically all your attention to boys, or maybe just one boy. I see how much you like Cove. Shoot. Lee laughed at your affirmation, deeply amused. Even though she couldn't see, you shook your head at her, grinning to yourself. There was a stomping noise approaching your room, heralding the arrival of your irritated older sister. She flung the door open, a frown etched on her face.
Come on.
How long are you going to hog the phone? Glancing at your watch, you realized that your quick call had gone on much longer than anticipated. Elizabeth held out her hand, the other one lodged on her hip. She noticed the realization on your face. Time's up. Lee, I have to go now.
Bye.
Okay, see you soon. Tell Elizabeth and your moms I said hi too. You barely pressed the end call button when Elizabeth whisked the handset from your fingers and began dialing someone new as she strode out of the room. Your ma's voice called from downstairs. Hey, has anyone seen the phone? I'm using it. With that, she shut your door behind you. Silence was left in the wake. That was one way to end your first day of summer break. Sometime later, it had gotten dark outside, and you laid in bed, wide awake. Sometime later... Your window rattled all of a sudden, startling you badly. You flinched, staring over at it with furrowed brows. From your vantage point, you saw only the moon and an open sky. You were... curious. What had caused that noise? Cocking your head, you sat up and moved closer to the window. You wanted to get to the bottom of this. To your utter shock, your gaze was met by a pair of familiar ocean blue eyes. Cove? You squinted. Yep, Cove was right outside your window. Your house was very angular, and some parts stuck out further than others, so it theoretically wouldn't be hard to climb around on. Still, just because somebody could didn't mean you expected it to ever happen. To his credit, Cove was doing fine. His feet were braced against a section of the wall that jutted out, his arms flexing with the effort to keep him upright. He easily lifted a hand and waved to you from the other side of the glass. You hurriedly opened the window. Cove climbed over the ledge, releasing the breath once he was safely inside.
Hey.
Hi, Jamie. What's up, Romeo? I like that. What's up, Romeo? I do like. I don't know what I would say though. Is everything okay? What happened? Amazing. My dreams have come true. I don't know. It's not okay. Oh, I needed to talk to you and couldn't wait until tomorrow. If I rang the doorbell, I know your moms would have answered and they'd just make me go home. I didn't really want to explain why I was coming over anyway. I don't want to talk about it. Well, besides with you, I mean. But that's why I did that. As unexpected as this was, you were touched. Cove felt like he could tell you what was wrong. I might have tried calling or something, except my dad was on the phone. Cove suddenly looked very cross. Dad, he was talking to my mom. Still is, probably. You raised your eyebrows. Cove had eavesdropped on his parents' phone conversation? I would have done that too. Cove looked relieved. A small smile played on his lips. Yeah, it's hard not to spy, at least a little. It was about me. Are you going to stay with your mom for a while again? Every year, Cove was sent off to live with his mother for a few weeks. When it happened varied. Sometimes he would go during winter break, but usually he went during summer. Even though it was hard news when you found out he was leaving and you missed seeing him those weeks, you understood. To your surprise, however, he shook his head. That's what I thought too, but no, that's not what they were saying. My dad asked my mom not to have me leave this year. He said she could come stay with us here. You waited for him to continue. He didn't. The conversation abruptly dropped off. You couldn't help but stare at Cove. There was a complicated mix of expressions on his face. What did your mom say? She told him she'd come. I know she's coming soon, before school starts. Oh. You had heard Cove talk about his mom a lot over the years. He'd tell you about past memories, or what happened while he was visiting her. Still, it was one thing to hear about someone, and another to actually meet them. Very soon you were going to see Cove's mom in person. You were taken aback by the news, so you could only imagine how Cove felt. You looked over at him. He was pacing across your room, his features pained with dread. Before, they'd barely stay in the same room long enough to have lunch. Now we're going to be all together again? The three of us, after all this time? Just for a few weeks? I know I should probably be happy they can talk to each other now. I'm still not. I'm just confused. And freaked out. And now I feel really bad for feeling this way. Jamie, it's so... His fist tightened and his eyes became misty. I shouldn't keep getting like this. It's been a long time already, and I'm not a little kid. Though he wouldn't meet your eyes, you knew he was waiting for you to say something. The tense line of Cove's shoulders eased. Thanks. That makes me feel a little better. Like I'm not freaking out for no reason. A momentary silence fell over the two of you. You marveled at how the day started. You had woken up eager for the summer vacation, but now things seemed so crazy. The mini debacle with Mr. Holden's gift, the newest addition to the neighborhood being so rude, and as if all that wasn't enough, now Cove's mom would be living with Cove and his dad again. Your whole life was kind of like that, it seemed. Complicated and hard and different. Why couldn't things just get better with time? Jamie? The sound of your name said quietly pulled you from your thoughts. Cove gazed at you, concerned.
Are you okay?
I'm worried about you. You don't have to forget about yourself for me. I want to listen to you too. Cove grinned reassuringly. It was small and delicate, but you knew it was genuine. Moonlight from outside cast shadows across his face and lit up his eyes. They seemed to sparkle with his smile. Just that one look brightened your mood somewhat. You know, I think I don't want to talk any more about this. He looked away, his lips thinning into a line, and rubbed at his arms. But I kinda don't want to go back home either. Could I stay a little longer, just doing something else? He appeared equal parts hopeful and vulnerable. How could you possibly turn him away? You held his gaze confidently, hoping your words got across to him. Cove perked up at your response, a smile appearing on his face. He immediately took a seat on your bed, not afraid to get comfortable in your room. You felt a little better at the sight, somehow. You still had a lot of worries, but you were glad he was here. And not just tonight. You were glad he came into your life in the first place. That was a change you'd never want to undo. It felt totally natural to let him into your little world. That initial friendship had deepened so much over these past years, and you were certain there was room to get even closer. You joined Cove on your bed, taking a seat across from him. He smiled at you, but you could tell... Oh, I hit it too fast, sorry. Though he didn't want to talk about his mom and dad, he must be thinking about what happened and what's about to happen. You smiled gently at him, put a hand. You hugged him. You hugged him. You moved closer and wrapped your arms around him. It wasn't much, but you hoped the contact helped even a little. Cove froze up, startled. After a moment, his arms came up, and he returned your hug. The two of you remained like that for some time. He might have mumbled something to you, but it was too quiet to tell what it was. When you pulled back, his expression had softened into something more natural. Conversation was stilted and broken, often by silence at first. Then both of you were able to get into your usual candor. As your secret hangout session stretched on, you thought that you truly wanted to keep having moments like this with him. You hoped a day would never come when life decided that the two of you would have to part ways, and you knew Cove felt the same. You opened your tired eyes, groaning as they adjusted to the bright light that was streaming through your window and warming your white skin. With a loud yawn, you rolled away from the sunlight and blinked a couple of times, clearing the sleep from your eyes, before realizing with a start that it was actually morning. You couldn't remember even falling asleep. Cove had crept through your window during the night, and the two of you spent time together trying not to wake your parents. You must have fallen asleep while you were hanging out, but couldn't put a finger on exactly when. You wondered how late Cove had stayed before heading home. You rubbed your face and yawned again, contemplating whether you should get out of bed and get ready for the day, or stay snuggled up for a little while longer. Until your gaze landed on an instantly recognizable mop of pale green hair, and you bolted upright and gasped in surprise. He never left. He was still there, in the morning. You laughed. He had fallen asleep while sitting on the ground and precariously leaning his head on the side of your mattress. With your laugh, Cove's eyes snapped open and his head slipped from its source of support. He didn't stop going down until he smacked right into the floor with a crack. You clamped a hand over your mouth and looked down at him with wide eyes, curled up where he had landed rather ungracefully.
Aww.
You helped him up. Here. Cove complied by putting his hand in yours, and you helped him back into a sitting position. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm alright. If either of your moms found out Cove had slept here last night, the two of you would be in big trouble. Cove blinked at you a couple of times, his eyes growing in panic as some thought that only he could hear settled in his mind.
Oh my god!
I fell asleep. You weren't exactly sure what to do as you watched Cove pace your room, looking around frantically. Cove stopped mid-step, and you wanted to ask what he had been searching for, but you guessed he wouldn't know the answer to that himself. Despite that, he hadn't calmed down completely. The atmosphere was still frazzled. You just need to leave before anyone notices you're here. If they knew, we would have heard about it already. Cove nodded, his shoulders tensed as he fixed you with a firm stare with his turquoise eyes. Letting out a heavy sigh, he ran a hand through his hair in exasperation. He couldn't look at you again as he spoke. I'll see you later. You were confused by how all of this had played out, but hoped that was true. Right. Bye, Cove. At that, you were suddenly wrapped in a tense embrace. As panicked as he was, this seemed to be something he couldn't forget before leaving. Thanks again. You're a good friend, Jamie. A really good friend. He firmly whispered the words into the top of your shoulder. It made you feel tingly. But you were let go before you had a chance to respond, or even fully react. In a matter of seconds, he had climbed over your bed and opened the window. A cool breeze rolled off the ocean, fluttering through Cove's hair and filling your room with its salty scent. Cove fearlessly stepped out onto the ledge. You wished him luck. Good luck. Be super careful. You weren't sure if he heard you or not, but he kept going along, one foot in front of the other with increasing speed, until his form disappeared out of sight. You stuck your head out the window as far as it could go to try to keep watching. He walked the full length of the ledge before jumping down to the top of the garage, then lowering himself onto the fence. From there he finally dropped down to the ground. You threw out a thumbs up at his successful climb. He ran off towards his house without stopping, disappearing behind the side of another building. You had to admit that you were pretty impressed at how doable he made that look. Cove always seemed to have a way of seeming so smooth without even meaning to. With a little sigh, you reclosed your window, deciding there was nothing more you could do. You hopped off your bed and got ready to head downstairs for the day. Your slippers, checked yourself in the mirror, you made your bed. Your slippers. You knew it was summer, but your slippers were comfy and cozy and made you feel better whenever you wore them. You took the stairs, slowly attempting to mask your face into a look of innocence. You were sure that someone would have come into your room if they had heard anything strange, but you couldn't be too careful. You had to play it cool. When you stepped into the living room, Elizabeth was there, tapping her finger on the counter. Good morning, Elizabeth. She looked you over immediately, her eyes squinting at the greeting.
Why?
Why are you being so weird? You hadn't even done anything. Your big sister never missed a beat, unfortunately. You turned and offered a tight smile, and her lips pursed together even tighter. Jamie. You shrugged it off. I'm not. You spoke so nonchalantly, you almost thought she believed you. But you knew better. Further suspicious squinting occurred as she waited for something. But ultimately she rolled her eyes, and you weren't sure if you were in trouble or not. She didn't seem to care enough to dig any further. Whatever. And then she walked straight out the front door, letting it slam shut behind her, and you let out a brief sigh. Elizabeth went out most days to hang out with her friends from school around town. Today you were extra glad for it, though you were also grateful she hadn't left the house any sooner and risked running into Cove. It looked like you were getting away with that. Breakfast was eaten in peace and alone. Your moms were both out by the time you'd gotten up. They had left you a serving of food from the breakfast they made: hash browns, an omelet, fruit salad, and there were a few sausage links. You took a little bit of everything. It was tasty. You appreciated that there was a variety in the meals your moms made. The day lazily drifted by. You pulled open the fridge again, lingering in the frosty air for a moment or two before grabbing a bottle of ice-cold water and taking a long drink. It was a perfect balmy summer afternoon, and you had decided to head outdoors and find something to do. You hadn't decided what that something was just yet, but you were sure something would pop up to occupy your time. As you were heading out the front door, you paused for a moment. You hadn't seen Cove since he had left that morning, and you couldn't help but think about what had happened to him. Wouldn't it be bad to go over to his house right now, or to call him to check in? You stepped out of your house, still stuck in an internal debate with yourself, when a voice caught your attention.
Hi.
Confused, you looked over to where an unrecognizable woman was waving at you, a friendly smile plastered on her face. You racked your memory for you might have seen her before, but nothing came to mind. Not your school or from the country club your moms took you to. You had absolutely no idea who the woman was. The woman crossed the road towards you, and you were a little unsure whether you should stay put or go back into the house and lock the door. Whoops, I'm sorry. Was that presumptuous? I've heard about you, but you have no idea who I am, do you? And this is Cove's mom. You shook your head, and she removed her sunglasses to reveal sparkly ocean blue eyes. All of a sudden, she seemed a little more familiar. My son lives here, and my ex too. With a bent smile, she lifted a hand to point at the condo across the street from your own house. She was Cove's mom. You didn't know why you hadn't realized sooner now that you'd gotten a good look at her. She seemed nice. Her attitude was friendly, and it seemed like she was genuinely happy to meet you. No matter your thoughts on her, you still felt taken aback that she had appeared so suddenly. Cove mentioned she was coming, but you hadn't gotten the impression it would be the very next day. She extended a hand again, this time for you to take, and you studied the manicured fingers in front of your face and the assortment of bracelets that dangled from her wrist. I'm Kyra Priest. You can call me Kyra. You shook her hand. You reached out and took her hand, and she shook yours firmly, grinning wide. I'm Jamie, but you already know that.
That I do.
Cove's mentioned you to me before. It's nice to officially meet you, Jamie. Cove talked about you to his mom. He hadn't mentioned how he said things about you to her. What has Cove said about me? Oh, I can't tell you that. I've already said too much. She laughed good-naturedly. You couldn't be happy about that answer, though. The sound of a door opening and closing caught both your attentions, and when you turned towards the sound, it was to find Cove exiting his house, his eyes skimming the ground. Considering how tall he had grown, you kind of figured his mom also would have been tall, but she was much more on the short side for an adult, anyway. Cove's height must have come from his father.
My baby.
There you are. I thought you were going to keep me standing out here all day. You tried to catch Cove's eyes as he walked towards you, but his gaze was firmly fixed on the sidewalk. When he finally crossed the road and looked up, he gave you a pitiful look. After the way he had acted last night, you knew he must be feeling pretty mixed up about this. You tried to wordlessly express that you understood. Cove and I are heading into town to grab something to eat while the snore is at work. Kyra beamed at Cove and ruffled his hair, which only seemed to upset him more. You assumed the snore she was talking about was Mr. Holden. Hey, you should come with us, Jamie. I'd love to get to know you better. Yeah, you should come. There was a pleading in his tone that you couldn't miss. Of course, we'll run it by your parents first, responsibility and all that. It'll give me an excuse to meet them, which I need to do at some point. It's important to be neighborly if I'm going to be roosting on the street for the time being. Any hoosies, let's go. Okay, so I know this has been a really long playthrough, guys, so I'm going to go ahead and call it here. I was planning on going through this section, like just going ahead and getting it over with before I had launched into the rest of this summer, but apparently this is a really long prologue. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and save this, and we will get back to this another day. On next Sunday. So I just want to thank you for joining me. I am the Planet Rocks. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, hit the bell for notifications, like the video, be sure to subscribe. You can also follow me on Twitter and on Twitch. Also, you can like and follow my page on Facebook. Thank you, and I'll see you again soon.